Hello guys, welcome to the channel. I'm DriverLadypro because I drive like a boss, but I try to stay classy like a lady. So in this video, we are talking about, like LA, are Uber drivers in Chicago planning an action, where and when. And I have on the phone one of the founders of the Chicago Rideshare Advocates. As you guys may know, I have been with them from inception, and so I'm tightly knit with the whole group. So you are hearing about the demonstration action right here first from me here on DriverLadyPro's channel, and then we are going to be discussing the effectiveness of maybe LA's, what the effectiveness was, and what is coming possibly in the future for demonstrations. So let me introduce to you Barb Lloyd of the Chicago Rideshare Advocates.
Hi, everybody.
So, Barb is what? Let me see. The first question that I'm going to ask you. I'm pulling it up right here. Okay, my first question for you. So let's get started with. Will you tell me how the CRA got started? When you got started?
Okay. Well, we started last summer. Lyft introduced a flat fee surge, and it got everybody pretty hyped up because the companies follow each other. And so a group of us got together and we got to our driver council, and we shut it down pretty quick with Lyft. Well, a week later, Uber started it. Drivers had been pretty riled up, and there was some general conversations going around. You know, you get 7 or 8 drivers shooting the shit, and we all wanted to strike. We all wanted to take some kind of action. Well, we shut down the flat surge with Lyft so quickly that we thought, let's have a large action in Chicago. So we called a meeting. We had about 40 people at our first meeting, and that was, I guess, the end of last June, the beginning of August. Sometimes, guys, it feels like an eternity, so I'm not necessarily exact about the date, but we sat around and had some deep dish and hashed out our issues and decided that we'd have an action at O'Hare at our TNP lot. And so we put together signs and flyers and contacted the press, and we had a pretty good turnout. We got, our lot holds about 400 cars, and we got about half the lot to turn off on a Monday night, which is a really busy night at O'Hare. And we blocked the lot for 3 hours. We got some pretty good press off of it, but Uber is not like Lyft, and they didn't respond at all. And the press was pretty short, so we thought, okay, we're going to have to keep going on this. So we started having meetings every couple weeks, and we formed a leadership board, and our web page and our Facebook page, and started the organization more formally than a bunch of us, being angry, sitting around trying to figure out stuff to do. And the group is pretty expansive. We have the techies, and we have the people that do the interviews more, and we have our fearless, large voices like Mandy that just don't have any hesitation of standing in the middle of the street and screaming at the top of their lungs.
Me? I'm an angel.
And we have, people that just wanted to support us financially and show up with donuts and food and help with the cost of the banners and the signs. And so as an organization, we have a couple thousand members. The core of us is probably about 300 that'll show up.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of this, is getting people to show up.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we've done a number of demonstrations, some big, some small. We've had a couple down at City Hall. We've had the one big one at O'Hare. We've been outside the Lyft office. We've been outside the Uber office. And Uber's response was to cut our fares even more, which didn't take Lyft any time but a second to follow with the fare cut. So drivers are even more furious. Nationwide, everybody's money is down. In Chicago, we've gone from, when I started, averaging about $35 an hour to now, before expenses, if you're really good and you really cherry pick when you're driving, you might make $20 an hour. Once your expenses are off of that, you're making about $11 an hour, which is not even our minimum wage here in the States.
Yeah, I wanted just a second.
And there's a lot of drivers that are making less than that. So
I wanted to go over, all right, what are the differences? Like, give us a picture, because I have only been driving 2 years, and you have been doing this forever and a day. Like, since Lyft started here, that's what I heard, that you have been doing this since Lyft started here in Chicago.
Not quite. Lyft started with 50 drivers, June 1st, 2014, or 2013. God. It's been 5.5 years. And it's 2019. Yeah, it was 2014. And I started in August. I was the 89th driver that Lyft picked up here. At the time I started, we were making, I started with Lyft only, and Lyft had a suggested fare that the passengers could choose to pay all or nothing. And that was only for my first couple of weeks, and then they went to a set fare. They were kind of guessing on what people would pay in Chicago. So they settled on $1.63 a mile and 9 cents a minute. So on a bad week, you made $10 a ride. And so if you needed $1,000 a week, you needed to do 100 rides. It took you about 40 hours to do 100 rides. You were averaging about 2 rides per hour, and then you'd have the busy times where it was a bunch of short rides, and so between 35 and 50 hours a week, you easily make 1,000 on your worst week. A standard week, when the weather was bad or there was a big event, you were making 1,500 to 1,800 in that 40 hours. Big weekends like New Year's and St. Patty's and that kind of stuff, Mother's Day, Easter, it was basically a $2,000 week. And most drivers put in somewhere between 30 and 50 hours. There weren't that many full-time drivers.
So
it was probably about 30.
So the one thing I want to point out here is there are like certain people that work endless hours. They work 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and they pull home $2,000. But when Uber and Lyft started, we could do that in a 40-hour work week, and we wouldn't have to work 12-hour days.
Right. I mean, I worked religiously Thursday through Sunday. Thursday, I'd work morning rush and evening rush, take a 3-hour break in the afternoon. So I total drove about 6 hours, maybe 7. If it was a really busy night, Chicago can get really cold, I would stay out. Friday was my one really long day. I'd start at the crack of dawn, and I'd work until it died. On a normal Friday, that was about 8, 9 o'clock. On a really bad weather or a big event weekend, that would be 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So I'd put in a huge 12, 14-hour day, but I'd make $600.
Yeah.
Saturday, I'd put in about 6 hours. Sunday was my long day. I put in 8 to 10 hours. So on average, I put in somewhere between 30 and 50 hours if it was crazy busy. But you stayed out because it was crazy busy and you were rolling in money. Gas was high. Cars were cheaper. No one really knew about rideshare, so our insurance was easier to manipulate. With Lyft and Uber, both companies were giving huge hourly guarantees. So if you did have a bad weekend, but you stayed out and you did the requirements for the hourly guarantee, you still were making $30, $40 an hour.
Now,
once your expenses were taken into that, you were still making at least $27 or $28 an hour.
So right now, see, I barely drive on Lyft at all, and they don't give me any hourly guarantees at all here in Chicago. I have heard of other markets they're getting the heat maps and the hourly guarantees and some of the things that Uber is doing. But we had all that heat maps and stuff come here, and like a bunch of us went down to, I was one that went down to the Lyft office, and I know other people did too, and complained about it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you?
I mean, when we started, if you drove 30 hours, you cut 10% of your. I mean, as an older driver, I only lose 20%. Unlike with Uber, where whenever they change percentage, they change everyone. With Lyft, whatever percentage you started with is what you still is taken. So in the beginning, if you drove 30 hours, you got 90% of your fares. If you drove 50, you got 100% of your fares. So they encouraged you to work longer and at least drive 30 hours, even if you were a part-timer. But the money was good, so you did it. Now, I mean, I used to drive exclusively in the city. I hated the longer rides. But a ride from Wrigley to Wicker was a $15 fare. Now it's $7.
Yeah.
If it's that much. So, and most of your rides in the city are $3.
Yeah.
So I literally have run many Saturdays where I did 30 rides and didn't clear $150.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't drive in the city anymore unless it's pouring rain, 50 below, or, I happen to be in the city when the surge is popping. But it's made it impossible, even for those of us who know the game better than anybody. We know what events pay the best, where to park our cars, after a Cubs game, not to get sucked into traffic and still make the surge. We have it down to a science, we've worked it out, and we will make our money. But most drivers, especially the newbies, haven't figured anything out, and if they're lucky, they're making $5 or $6 an hour. I talked to one driver yesterday that was totally discouraged. She was out for 12 hours and made $93.
Wow.
After her gas and and her mileage on her car, she made a whopping $4.60 for 12 hours.
Wow. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about some of the things that you have accomplished with your demonstrations in the past, and then what with this action that's coming up on next Thursday 6 p.m. I'm telling everybody right now, next Thursday 6 p.m. We're having an action at O'Hare Airport, and what is it that and I would admit, I already know the answer to this question. We're trying to raise awareness, but I mean,
Sure.
Elaborate on that.
Okay, well, we had an advantage over some cities. It's our mayoral election year. And unlike previous years in Chicago, we had a lot of progressives running. And we also had a lot of aldermen who have been in office for forever, either retire, willingly or unwillingly, and or get challenged by younger progressive candidates. So our city was going through an electoral shakeup. So I'm kind of the policy wonk of the group. So my focus was to get to every mayoral forum that was either an open forum, so they were going to answer any kind of questions, or had to do with transportation in the city, or had to do with safety in the city. Because most drivers out there, maybe if you're in a little town, safety isn't an issue, but here in Chicago, we have lost multiple drivers. And we've had lots of carjackings, and we have a lot of safety issues here. We also have a lot of fake accounts here. So safety is one of the things we're asking for.
That's one thing I wanted to touch base on. When we were at the meeting, and we're still like editing that particular meeting, and we're going to put it up. But when we were at the meeting,
it is up, actually.
It's up
on the Facebook page.
Okay. So when we were at the meeting, I specifically remember Eli talking about how there are tons of people that are in Chicago that have fake Uber and Lyft accounts. And what it is one guy goes and he like rents out cars, and he gets these fake Uber and Lyft accounts, and people are driving around using his Uber or Lyft account, and they haven't had background checks. Their cars haven't been inspected. They're just using whatever, and they have to, they get to come in town, make extra money, or something like that, and that's a big issue.
A lot of the fake drivers in Chicago, some of them are just immigrants that, for whatever reason, couldn't pass the background check. And driving a cab or driving now rideshare has always been an easy way for an immigrant to make a living when they don't have status, because Chicago is a sanctuary city. So they can get a driver's license. But if there is any criminal background, like they got busted for coming into the country illegally, or there is a warrant out because their visa is expired or whatever, they can't drive. And they're just trying to make a living. Well, there were people that were just trying to make a buck on the system, and there was one group that had 2,400 fake accounts. And it was abusive to the driver, because the driver was paying $300 off the top of their meter, going directly to the guy that set up the fake account. Plus, generally, they were getting their car from the guy and paying an outrageous sum for the car. So they were $800 in the hole when they started their week. So they were literally working around the clock, or they'd work in tandem with somebody else and drive the car 24 hours a day. And the police department scooped up 2,400 people in a sting. There is still quite a few fake accounts out there. Uber, as most people know, got hacked a couple of years ago, and they swore none of the data got loose because they paid the guys off. But there's a number of drivers that have had their accounts activated in other cities, and have found themselves, when they file their taxes, being told, hey, what about the money you made in this city or that city? So we know there's still fake accounts out there. So one of the things we are asking for from Lyft and Uber and Via, because Via is our third company here, is that the app, any passenger has to have a photo ID on file when they start the account. It's got to be a legit ID. I mean, a driver's license and or a state ID. So if they do something to a driver, they can no longer have an account with any of the services. And for drivers, we're asking the apps to either put a thumbprint activation and or facial recognition. Because one of the things they haven't been able to get around is they remove the photo, but they can't put another photo on. So they can smear the photo so it doesn't look like anything, but they can't, because of the software, they can't put the fake driver's picture into the app. So the one thing we can do to stop the fake accounts, which are dangerous to the passengers because we don't know anything about these drivers. I mean, I'm giving most of them the benefit of the doubt that they're just trying to pay their bills. Maybe they got busted for pot when they were 16, and because it's a felony, as stupid as that sounds in this day and age, they can't get on the platform. Maybe it's because they are not here legally. Maybe it is something more serious. We don't know. We don't know anything about their cars. We don't know anything about the driver, and that's the point. Uber didn't background check most of its drivers when it first started. It said it did, but they didn't. They're just getting around here in Chicago to truly do background checks, and they're using an unreputable company to do it. So a lot of drivers are having problems with that.
I heard they're using this thing called Checker, and it's coming back. And
there's been multiple investigations into the company because they've given false flags because they don't truly look at the data. It's all done by computer. So my name is not super common, but I know of at least 5 Barbara Lloyds right here in Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, I got notice from Lyft that they were going to cut, they weren't going to renew my city sticker because I had outstanding tickets. And I went down to court and said, I don't have any outstanding tickets.
Yeah.
And there was another Barb Lloyd, that did. And, I had to prove that I wasn't that Barb Lloyd. So I know there's at least 5 of them here. Because when they pulled up Barb Lloyd, it was like, okay, that's me, and I saw the other 4. But this company is doing a nationwide search. Mm-hmm. So how many Barb Lloyds are there across the country? And one of them might have done something illegal. I mean, I know there's one here that doesn't pay any of the utilities and doesn't pay their tickets. So, how many have, committed a crime? I don't know. By the way, it wasn't me. But
the people are getting deactivated wrongfully because of this checker.
Right. And now Lyft is not using that company as far as we know. It's just an Uber thing. It's saving them a lot of money. Because they used to say they did background checks, but they never did because it saved them $25 per driver that's signed up. Then here in the city, they were required to do background checks, and then the city busted a bunch of drivers that had criminal background. So the city actually started looking at Uber and said, you really got to do this. So they had to do thousands and thousands of background checks. Um, so as far as I know, this is an Uber-specific thing, and not a Lyft thing. I could be wrong, though. I have not heard any Lyft driver that was deactivated. All the complaints I've seen have been Uber drivers. And sometimes it's really stupid stuff. There's one driver here in the city who got a new driver's license. Well, when they ran his background check, they showed his driver's license as expired because it was at his old address and it was no longer a valid driver's license. And he had updated his driver's license with Uber, but this company kept, every time they ran his background, ran into a problem with his address and his driver license being expired. For 2 months now, the guy has tried to get back on the system. So, you know, it's a stupid technicality, and he's gone down to the Uber office a dozen times, and they say they're going to fix it, and they never do. Every time they rerun his background check, this computer comes back saying his driver's license is expired. So we know it's a machine, and the machine obviously has some issues. Other companies are using this company, and now there's a lot of lawsuits against this company that aren't just coming from Uber. So it's a really bad judgment call from Uber to use this company, because the lawsuits and the issues with the background check on Checker were there before they chose to use this company. So they went with what was cheapest for them, because for them it's all about bottom line. They don't care about the safety of the drivers. They don't care about the safety of the passengers. They just want the money. So, what else? So
Okay.
our agenda, safety is a big thing. We want the accounts to be activated with a valid photo ID. So if a passenger gets excessively belligerent and or violent with the driver, they're kicked off the system and they can no longer use rideshare. For a driver, same thing. If a driver gets aggressive with women, or a man, I guess. I've never heard of a woman getting aggressive with a man, but I guess I can't rule that out. They get kicked off the system, they can't go to another system. So there's cross-pollination with the background checks, because we want the city to do them instead of the companies. We are also asking for the basics as far as pay raise. We want to go back to the 2014 equivalent to today's cost of living. So in 2014, the average rent in Chicago was about $1,600. Now the average rent is $2,700. So if we were getting $1.63 and 9 cents a minute in 2014, you add the increased cost of living of 127%, and you know we should be making $1.98 plus 22 cents per minute. I think that's the math. We also want to get rid of pre-pricing, because the companies are pre-charging the passengers, and they're estimating their ride taking the longest, slowest route, and then our GPS takes us the shortest, fastest route. So the passenger's paying $40, we're putting $20 on our meter, and then they're taking our 20% or 25% off the 40. So we're making 12 and they're making 28. So which is a whole lot more than their 20% or 25%. It's their way of getting around that, because the one thing that's solid in our contract is the 20% or 25%. So with Uber, they've gone to the flat surge, but they're still charging the passengers standard surge. So if they're giving you $7 for the ride, they're charging the passenger 100% or 200% or 300%. We have example after example after example of the passenger paying over $200 for the ride and the driver making $50 or less. So obviously they're taking a whole lot more than 20 or 25%. So we want a set percentage, 20 or 25%. If they want to get rid of the surge, that's fine. If they think that passengers won't pay that and surge pricing, if we're making $2 a mile and 22 cents a minute, we don't need the surge. The surge was always bonus money. You know, you made your money on the rides. You didn't chase the surge because every ride was at least $10. Now every ride is $3. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So
Well, especially the rides in downtown, the ones in downtown. Yeah.
Sure. It takes you 5 to 10 minutes to get to them, and then they're going 2 blocks.
Yep. Yeah.
And it takes you 5 to 10 minutes to get to the next person that's going 3 blocks. And you know you're burning a lot of gas and killing a lot of time to make $5.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the way the system is now is we are considered independent contractors, but we have no control over our pay. Any other industry besides the gig economy, if I got hired by Joe Schmo Corporation and as an independent contractor, and I was told my salary was $75,000 a year. Okay? Now, mind you, I wouldn't have any benefits, and they could fire me on a dime, but I was going to make $75,000 a year for as long as that job lasts, right? I got started with Lyft making $1.63 a mile. I'm now making 63 cents a mile. So they've taken $1 per mile away from me, and I never agreed to it. I had no control over it. So am I an independent contractor, or am I just their slave labor? Because their companies don't exist without us. The whole point of this is we were using our cars. We paid the expenses, but we made the majority of the money. They were getting a small cut off the top to run the software, to advertise, to build their companies. Now there are multi-billion-dollar companies that only are losing money because they've been investing in automated cars so badly and a lot of other technology that is unnecessary. And so they can claim they're losing money. But the reason they're losing money now is because they're undercharging the passenger in order to make it so cheap to use rideshare that they eliminate public transportation and cabs.
Yeah, people don't understand that all right.
When they're the only transportation left, suddenly that $3 ride is going to be a $20 ride.
People don't understand. They're trying to compete with the CTA. They're trying to compete with the buses. They're trying to go solo to get people from riding on the bus. But the problem with that whole scenario is when they're on the CTA, when they're on the train, when they're on the buses. I mean, when they're on a lot of people are using it once, and there's a lot less congestion. And
right.
The problem we've been having here is congestion.
Right. When we first started, after we had been in operation for a little over 2 years, we actually brought traffic down by 30%. It was a big deal that rideshare was working. People were getting rid of their cars, or they weren't using their cars because it was, a lot of kids that had come to the city when they graduated from college and started their jobs, sold their cars or took their cars back home to the suburbs or their small town, wherever they came from, right? And because they were paying a huge amount for their parking space, and we were cheaper than paying for parking and maintenance on a car. So we actually brought traffic down. Then they opened the floodgates. They started mass hiring. Lyft got rid of its mentor program and just basically come down to any Pep Boys and sign up. We'll get you going in 24 hours, you know? And Uber did the same thing. They were giving huge bonuses. And so the amount of cars in Chicago increased and traffic went back to about where it was. Well, then they lifted the ban between states. And we now have drivers coming to the Chicago market on the weekends or during the week. And they are coming in from Indiana, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Michigan, Canada. I saw some people the other day from Nebraska, and I actually knocked on their window because they were in the airport lot, and I said, "Are you in a rental car, or are you actually from Nebraska?" And they said, "No, I'm actually from Nebraska. Every 2 weeks I come in and I drive for 10 days and I go home."
I actually have a friend that comes down and works the Chicago market too.
Right.
So
so we have somewhere between 67,000 and 118,000 Chicago drivers. We can't get hard statistics from the city. Rahm Emanuel has absolutely blocked me on a FOIA request. So we don't have a hard number. That's one of the things we're asking for. And then you add the thousands of drivers that are coming here from other states. And our traffic has actually gotten so bad that there is no such thing as non-rush hour. And in the summer, it comes to a dead stop 24/7. Mm-hmm. So now, instead of just having rush hour traffic, we have traffic all day long. And our roads are getting hit hard with it. Our CTA is getting hit hard because 3 kids or 2 kids can jump in my car and go 2 miles and pay $3. And it would cost them $5 to get on the train. And I pick them up at their door and I drop them at their door. They don't have to walk the half a block to the train and then walk the half a block from the train. So we're cheaper than the CTA. And we pick them up at their door. And we drop them at their door because, God forbid, they have to walk 5 feet. And so we're hurting our public transportation. This current mayor's solution was to add a tax on our rides that covers and helps maintain the CTA. We've added congestion. And so we are, to get back to what CRA is asking for, our list of demands is pretty broad. We want a set cap on 20 or 25%, so they can't, charge the customers $200 and, give us 80% of the ride on our meter. They can't keep the surge. And with pre-pricing, we get 80% or 75% of that pre-pricing. If they're going to pre-price, then we get our share of it instead of getting taxed on it. We are looking for the city to take over safety inspections. Drivers are having to work 80 to 100 hours a week to keep a roof over their head. And they are, when it comes right down to it, it becomes, between feeding your kid or keeping your mortgage paid or paying your rent and changing your brake pads or repairing the busted window, you pay your bills, and your car maintenance gets pushed till the next week, or the next week. And so we have a lot of cars out there that are not safe. And so if the city takes over inspections, just like it does with cabs, there will be no more people submitting their own safety inspection. Because right now, you can go online and print up a copy of a safety inspection and fill it out, put out whatever you want, scribble a signature on the bottom and submit it. And the companies take it. So, you know, if you've been driving for any length of time, all you have to do is look at a safety inspection that you passed and duplicate that and send that in. So we're also looking for some tax relief for the cabbies. The cabs here in Chicago are supporting our striking actions. And we are looking for, I have to stop and look at what else is on our list. We have a lot. So we're also looking for a driver cap. New York made the mistake of putting a car cap on, and it's become a black market for pre-approved rideshare cars. So we have the driver cap, the commission cap, city oversight for driver deactivation. What we're asking for is a set amount of locations that a driver who gets notified that a passenger put in a complaint that we were driving intoxicated, that driver has the right to immediately go to one of those locations, get a blood alcohol or drug test done immediately, and if they are clear and if they were not driving intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, the passenger pays for that test. The passenger is penalized, and the passenger pays not only for their fare, but however much time we're deactivated for. If you're deactivated for something else, there has to be a 48-hour window where it gets reviewed. What we're looking for is representatives from the companies, representatives from the city, and representatives from the drivers to be on the deactivation board. And any deactivations have to go through that board, and a decision has to be made. If there is some decisions that can't be made within that 48 hours, say there's a police report involved or other things, then there still has to have a set time limit for the driver. We want stricter regulations for our licensing. So we have control over who has a license here in Chicago. We want a ban on out-of-state plates. The exception would be military plates, because military personnel are the only people in Chicago that can drive here on out-of-state plates. Everyone else, if you're a resident of the state of Illinois, your plates have to be changed over within 30 days. And right now, I don't know how many drivers really even understand this, but if you pick up a minor or you take a child without a safety seat and you're, God forbid, in an accident and that child or that minor is hurt, their umbrella policy will not cover that minor and they will not cover that child. It is completely on the driver, and the driver can lose everything they own. So if we have two solutions for it. One, we want the umbrella to be a commercial umbrella, like cabs have. So it covers minors, and it covers wheelchair accessible and child car seats. We also want a fleet like they have in New York, where if you're a wheelchair or a child seat car, you get paid like a premium car. Because if you have car seats in your car, that limits how many passengers you can take. So the passenger would have to order a specialized car, and that's the only car they can use.
I agree with that, because a lot of us YouTubers, I mean, I know you, but a lot of us don't realize with the disability people, they had to do something about that, but they don't have to do something about these car seats, and all they're doing is leaving it up to us drivers. But really, the answer to that is to do like an Uber Wave for car seats.
I've been driving for almost 2 years before I found out that we weren't supposed to pick up kids under 18, and our insurance didn't cover kids under 18, and that if you took a child without a car seat, they would not cover that child. Now, mind you, I'm a parent, so I would never take a kid without a car seat, but lots of drivers did. And I was, in the beginning, I was a full-time driver. I'm not anymore. I'm a part-time driver now because I'm old. But, well, mostly just because I can't make shit per hour, so it's not worth the time on my car. But, I didn't know about the minors. I found out on a chat board.
I didn't know until maybe the time we started demonstrating. Maybe, I don't know. When we started demonstrating, then I started realizing it. But I remember picking up minors before, and in my car.
I pick them up from high school and take them to their jobs. Or I lived up in the area that you live now. My son was still in high school when I first started. I knew most of the parents, and a lot of the parents, especially on cold, bitter mornings, I was right there, and they would gladly let me take their kid to school instead of having to warm up their car and get them through the winter.
Right.
But now, mind you, I was lucky because I was taking kids I knew, or, from homes, and it's a pretty small community, so everybody knows everybody, but I didn't know I was breaking the law. I didn't know I was breaking the policies of the company. I had no bloody idea. It was just a ride for me. I was out anyway, so I might as well, it was quick money for me to take, 7 kids to high school every morning.
One thing a lot of people point out is the people that do follow the rules, they will turn down the ride, and then another Uber or another Lyft will come and pick them up right behind us. And that it needs to be made.
I've had more than one screaming match. Here's my funny story for the day. I was in the airport lot. I got a call. I got up to the curb, and there was a family with 2 small children, the smallest being about 7 months old and the other one being about 2.5. And I asked if they had car seats, and they said no. And I said, well, we can't take you. It is illegal for us to take children without proper car seats. I said, you can take a cab or you can take the train, but you cannot take rideshare. As I pulled away, another car pulled up and let them get in. The car got about 10 feet from the curb, and the cop pulled them over and gave them a ticket for 2 kids without an adequate car seat. The driver took it. Yeah. So it cost the driver. It probably cost the couple, although I don't know how that worked out.
Yeah, I don't know.
A week later on a Sunday morning, I get a ping from one of the high-rises downtown, and I pull up, and guess who's there? Same couple with their 2 little children, and they're going back to O'Hare. And I explained to them that I can't take them. And they said, you are the same person. We had to go through 8 drivers before we could get a ride from O'Hare. And I said, you should have just gone downstairs and grabbed a cab. I explained to you that it is illegal for us to take you without a car seat. And you have 2 small children, and it is totally unsafe. If I slam my brakes, those kids are going to go flying through the windshield. And I'm not going to take your kids I wouldn't do it with my children, and I won't do it with yours. And I canceled. And I had been there for over 5 minutes, so I made $5. So I drive away, and I'm not more than 3 blocks, and I get the same address and the same name. And now I've just explained to them why I can't take them. Not once, but twice, because I explained to them at the airport, and I was very polite about it. Well, this time I was like, screw it, I'm getting the $5. So I went back, and I pulled up, and I said, hi, guess what? I still can't take you. And I sat there, and I wouldn't cancel the ride until they did, and they paid me another $5. And they said, well, we're going to miss our plane. And I said, I would suggest you call a cab. Or jump on the blue line, which is 3 blocks away, and get there by train. But you cannot use rideshare. But a cab
People
is
don't
too
get
expensive.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
They looked at me and said, but a cab would cost me twice as much. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but we cannot take you.
Yeah.
I could have played this game for another half hour with these people, but this time I turned off my app and I drove like a half a mile away and then turned back on. I'm sure they got another driver that took them. But, the reality is now, at least on the app, we have the option of saying no car seat. So we don't get penalized for the cancellation. But if you're trying to hit one of those street bonuses, it blows your bonus. And the company doesn't do anything. So
I know.
If they are going to continue with the standard umbrella policy that they have now, they have to create a fleet of cars that have car seats. And if we pull up and there is a passenger with a child and no car seat, the company has to send an email immediately to that passenger stating that the only way that they can take that child is in a car seat, and give them the option of ordering a car with a car seat and refusing to let them order a car without one. Because if they're not going to give us commercial insurance that will cover that child, although I don't know why cabs can do it, because in Chicago and Illinois, it is against the law to transport any child without a car seat. So I don't know how cabs get around it, but they do. So, it's an issue for us, and it's a big issue here. Every morning, if you work the suburbs, you're going to get calls from people, then it's parents who don't want to drive their kids to school. And they know they're not supposed to do it, but they do it anyway. So it's, like with VIA got around it for high school students. Any student under 16 has to have the parents have to give written permission and put it on file with VIA and give a copy of it to the driver. So VIA's found a solution that works for them. Uber and Lyft have done nothing other than add the no car seat button.
So I have a question. So we're getting to, we've been doing this for an hour almost, 53 minutes.
Okay.
But I do want...
What happens when you get me talking?
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. And I appreciate we've had a couple people coming in and out of the room, and I'm assuming, people get busy and stuff like that, but we do have one person in the room right now. But I do want to, I want to give somebody this new, this person that's in the room, whoever it may be, I want to let them know that this is kind of a spoiler alert. There are more actions coming besides this action on Thursday, and we don't have anything set in stone, but it may be in conjunction with other organizations like our own that we are going to try, not this particular action, but in the future.
Right. And we tried to time this action with LA, We couldn't. LA had theirs organized. We did not. They were doing it basically when we were having our meeting to get ready to have our next action. We have two major actions planned. One this Thursday. I can't really give out details about it because what we're doing is
going to be huge.
Say we don't want to give a heads. We don't want to give a heads up to the police department or the company. If you are interested, if you're a Chicago driver and you are interested in participating, go to ChicagoRideshareAdvocates on Facebook.
Or you can.
They will give you details there.
Anybody that is interested in any of this, they always can email me at driverladypro@gmail.com, and I will put them in touch with you guys right away.
Right.
Of course. And then
just an FYI, because we know the companies monitor all the various YouTube sites and Facebook pages and everything else, we will want you to prove you're a driver.
Yeah.
Just because we're trying to protect ourselves as well as the people that are involved. So we have two actions planned. They're almost back to back. We have a new mayor coming in next Tuesday. Whoever wins, the rideshare community is generally backing Lightfoot because she seems to be more open to our agenda. And we have our favorites on the aldermen. And we're trying to get rid of a few aldermen that have been blocking us. And then we will be doing another action 2 weeks later. And then we'll be doing an action in conjunction with LA. And we're actually going to try and, there's groups in San Francisco, LA, Connecticut, of all places, has gone on some major strikes. London, Mumbai, Montreal, Vancouver, here in Chicago, there's some issues in New York. They're trying, Lyft and Uber are trying to get around the laws that they did implement. There's, drivers are mad everywhere. The concept of this was great. In the beginning, we all made money. The companies made money, we made money. Then they just started looking for ways of screwing the drivers, and they've got us down to slave labor. If you don't know how to work the streets and minimize your hours and maximize your income and minimize your miles, you're going to be paying more for your car and your maintenance and your gas than you are going to make, which doesn't make any sense. So our goal is to have two major actions, one at O'Hare next Thursday, and the following one downtown, outside of City Hall. And then we are going to be trying to do a general strike the same day as LA does its next strike. LA actually got they've been working for a long time. Their organization has been around longer than ours. When Uber and Lyft went in and cut their pay down to the same rate that we're making here in Chicago, they went ballistic because they still were making a lot more than us up until this last fare cut. So they got a lot of drivers involved. And drivers that weren't there picketing were actually turning off their app. The companies, they
don't care. Lyft was signing up drivers down the road. They were outside down the road with a little thing.
They were finding the Uber drivers that were mad, and then they turned around and were signing them up with Lyft. And what did Lyft do the following week? They lowered their bloody rates. So, which is exactly what they did here in Chicago. So drivers are upset, and justifiably. We're losing our homes. I mean, this is not a small thing. One of the other things that I didn't mention that's on our agenda is the false advertising.
Yeah.
They're going into the poor communities and advertising. Come drive with us. We'll supply you with a car. It's a great way of making money. And just to show you that they know we're not making the money we used to, when I started, Uber was guaranteeing $5,000 my first month as long as I drove 200 hours. And Lyft was guaranteeing me $4,500 as long as I drove 200 hours. Right now, they're guaranteeing you $1,500 if you drive for 30 days and do 300 rides. So even in their advertising now, they realize that all they can offer is, in a guarantee, is $5 a ride. $5 a ride. And that's absurd. That it costs us $2 to give a ride. So, you know, and the new drivers, they look at the $200 they made that day, right? And that's a lot of money. That's more than they made at their other job. But they don't realize what it costs them to make that $200. So I ask every driver that visits Mandy's YouTube to look at your overall cost. It's not, I mean, St. Patty's Day, we all made a ton of money. We just had, Chicago, St. Patty's is huge, right? This week we haven't made anything because it's spring break. Between the two, it averaged out to being okay money.
Yeah.
But it's still not okay.
Yeah.
Drivers are literally working. The whole point of this job was that you had flex hours, so you could be a parent when you wanted to, or you could go on a date when you wanted to. You could have a life and still make a living. And they advertise this as if that's still the point, and they lie. When the press contacted Lyft about the Chicago market and our last action, Lyft flat out said that they had not changed the rates in Chicago for 12 months. We've had 2 pay cuts in the last 12 months. Both companies will sit there and justify no driver cap and no increase in ride costs because only 3% of the drivers are full-time.
Yeah.
It's that many. In Chicago, there's probably 60% of our drivers are full-time drivers because they got sucked into buying a fancier car and leaving their other job for whatever reason. And now they can't go back into the job market because they can't stop driving long enough to go for a job interview. Or they're like me, they're too old to go back into the job market. But for whatever reason, they're here. They're now stuck here. These kids from the poor neighborhoods are getting sucked into these car rentals. They're costing them a fortune, and just to cover their gas and their car rental is $500. So they're $500 in the hole the minute they start driving.
I'd like to point out, Barb, because a lot of people say this, people that are kind of opposed to us, they're like, oh, if you don't like your job, just quit. And it's, I tell everybody, absolutely love this job. I do. I love this job. But the fact of the matter is we keep getting a pay cut, and it's getting more and more and more dangerous every day.
Right. And the thing that people have to realize, for me, because I'm basically a senior citizen, I'm doing this to fight for my kid, who's 23, because corporation after corporation after corporation has found a way around labor laws. With Lyft and Uber, they skirt every labor law out there by calling us independent contractors, but they don't give us control of our income. If we were truly independent contractors, then we could set the cost of the ride.
Yep.
We would have control of the cost. So we aren't independent contractors. We work for those companies.
What?
Okay? So big corporations have independent contractors working in their IT firms and on their sales force, so they don't have to pay them benefits, and they can shit can them anytime they want. This goes beyond rideshare. This is corporate greed. Lyft just went public.
Oh, did
and
they?
They made a big deal out of. They made a big deal today. Today was their IPO. They made a big deal about giving a $1,000 bonus to any driver that had 10,000 rides, and a 10,000 bonus to any driver that had 20,000 rides. And they made it sound like they were handing out these bonuses to 90% of their drivers. I've been driving for 5.5 years. 5.5 years. And I just barely made the 10,000 rides.
Wow.
The only people that would have been, I know of 7 drivers across the country that have hit 20,000 rides. 3 of them started Lyft. They literally were the first drivers in San Francisco. So they've been driving for 7, 8, 9 years. Okay? Because, I used to do 200 to 400 rides a month. Month in, month out. Now, I do maybe 30 rides, 40 rides a week. So I'm way under 200 rides a month. Because I can't afford to be out there doing 400 rides a month. It would cost me money. So they made this big deal out of giving back to the drivers that made them, but there's a lot of drivers like me that have been with the company for 5, 6 years that didn't have 10,000 rides, that didn't get a dime. They didn't say, oh man, you've been driving for us for 5 years and you've been a loyal 5-star driver, you get a bonus.
Right.
Right? So you can buy in. They didn't do that. They set a date and time. I literally know one driver that hit their 10,000 ride the day after the cutoff time. So they didn't get their bonus. The cutoff was February 25th, and they made their 10,000 ride on February 26th. So they didn't get their $1,000 bonus. They didn't tell us until after the cutoff date that you needed to have 10,000 rides. They said that they were going to be giving stock shares, bonuses so people could buy in pre-release. So there's a lot of drivers out there that have put their heart and soul into this company, and they didn't give a squat at all. And when we started here in Chicago, it was one of the things they talked about, is that if they ever went public, that we would get shares.
All right, I wanted to say what one of the persons did point out in the room. His name is Beacon of Light Driver. He did say the destination filter discrimination when you were talking about what he's pointing out.
That's another thing that drivers really riled up here in Chicago. Yeah, Uber, in all its wonderfulness, if you've been doing this for any length of time, you use your destination filters to make sure you make your money on morning rush and evening rush, right? And if you're really good, you only have to use it a couple times a day. And you play the game, so you get your rides and you hit your surges at the right time. And then apparently one of the YouTubers out there was giving people lessons on how to use the destination filter. And drivers tell other drivers, and so especially on Uber in the morning, Uber actually, the one time that Uber does less rides than Lyft is morning rush hour. Lyft actually dominates on morning rush. So Uber is really, really pushing for their morning rush to get it back. And what they've done now is take away the destination filter by charging you. They said 30%, and then the 2 days after they were taking 30% discount on a ride, they started charging 40%.
Yep, so I saw that. I did the math. They said 30%, but I did the math, and it was actually 40%.
Mm-hmm. And actually, they just raised it. They just arbitrarily, 2 days later, when people were still using their destination filter, they raised it to 40%. So literally, one poor guy was trying to get home and didn't want to drive back empty. He did an hour-long ride. It was 57 minutes in traffic, and he made $12 on the ride. Uber made $27 on the ride because they're still charging the passenger the full fare. They're just taking an extra 40% from the driver. So they're taking their 25% plus 40%. So they're taking 65%. They're giving the driver 35% of the ride. And if it's a surge ride, the passenger's paying even more than that. So they're really literally getting like 90% of what the passenger is paying, and the driver's getting 5%. So these companies are ripping us off every way they can think of in order to boost their coffers because they're going public and they want to show cash flow. In the last year and a half, since Lyft started pre-pricing, they went from averaging 17% of the fare to 29% of the fare. Well, it's 28.8% or something like that. And the reason is because of pre-pricing. Because they're charging the passenger a lot more than it's because our contract says we get 80% of our meter, right? So from O'Hare to downtown, on average, if there's okay traffic, I'm going to make $21. Well, they're charging the passenger $40. So they're taking my 20% off a $40 fare.
Yeah.
So they're actually charging me more percentage-wise than I'm putting on my meter.
Yeah.
So that $25 ride is now a $17 ride for me.
Yep.
So, so they are doing everything in their power to, cut the fares down so passengers take us more often and keep more than our contract with them is. Because we do have a contract. My contract with Lyft says they take 20%. Your contract with Uber, if you've been driving for only 2 years, says 25%.
With Uber?
And they're getting around that with these crazy, stupid changes. And as far as they're concerned, they're sticking to the letter of our contract. Our contract says they're giving us 80% of the meter. Well, our meter is different from what they're charging the passenger. In Chicago, Lyft is also suppressing surge.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I remember you and I talked about the other day how they're telling the passengers that they're surge, but they're not telling the drivers that they're surge. Because
that's an Uber thing. Because when Uber started their flat surge pricing, right, where the passenger's paying the 100% surge, but the driver's making $350 flat bonus, they weren't getting the drivers to the airport. So they surge at the airport all the time. If you are an Uber driver and you go to O'Hare, you're going to make an extra $3.50 to $10 per ride out of O'Hare. So you're actually getting paid better than a Lyft driver going out of O'Hare. But in order to do this and not lose money, they're constantly surging the airport. So a passenger sees that it's surge and they're paying 75% or 100% surge. So they're paying $60 to get downtown. The driver is being paid $23 to take them downtown. And the driver doesn't see that surge. They're getting that flat $3 or $6 or $5 or whatever it is, right? And the reason I know this is because Lyft has become much busier at O'Hare because Uber is always surging in order to cover their flat fee surge because it was the only way they could keep drivers in the lot. But they're literally are charging surge to passengers when there's 200 cars or more in the lot. Today,
Yes.
literally, our lot was completely full, and Uber was surging at O'Hare.
I see that happen all the time. I'm going to O'Hare and I see they're surging and there's 200 people in the lot. I can't, in fact, it'll say lot closed, lot full. And I'm like, how can we be surging right now?
Because it's the only way they can get drivers in a lot. Now, Lyft is doing the exact opposite. They realize that Uber has been surging all the time at O'Hare, so Lyft won't surge the airport, with really rare exceptions. So we have what they call a ring of fire, where you can pick up a ride outside the airport and it shows like a demand, but we don't get a surge from there. It just shows that you can actually pick up outside of the lot, and which is an advantage because our lot gets crazy. But Thursdays and Sunday nights, Friday nights, a lot of times Saturday nights, Monday nights, guaranteed at least once a night for an hour, there'll be a surge at the airport. There has not been any for weeks because they're doing more rides out of O'Hare because Uber is always surging. So we're actually increasing our ride share of the airports because we are not surging. So there literally was not a single Lyft driver in the lot last Sunday night, not one, when I got to the airport, and there was not a surge. And yet...
And Sunday night is a busy night, I'm sure.
Right. So normally that would be 150% surge. But because Uber was surging, they would not, to keep the demand up. I mean, it's, so both companies are playing games.
Yeah.
And it's our money that they're playing games with. What they are doing is no different than someone sticking a gun in our face and stealing our wallet. They have literally stolen our pay, and they are doing it daily. So, I mean, we've been really proactive around the election here. Every community's got to do it differently. It doesn't matter whether it's 4 of you or 10 of you or 100. Just get started.
Yeah, we started with 4 people. That's it. We just had 4 people. It was you,
literally.
You, Eli, Mattia, and Lenny. And then I was like the 5th person on the scene. And you got, well, there was a few 5th persons on the scene, but I was
right. Our first meeting, we had 35 drivers there. Our first protest rally downtown, we had 20 people.
Yeah, it wasn't a ton, but it was about gaining traction.
Right, but we had 100 or more drivers stop, get our flyer, and join. So it got us a lot of exposure. We got press interviews. We've drawn attention to our issues here in Chicago through the election, through various protests, everything from overpass protests to inviting the press down to see how crazy our airport lots get, and the problems that we have.
People were, let me address this too. Yes, when LA had their protests, I personally thought they had a great turnout. They had a lot of people turn out, but people were sitting back on their couches at home going, oh, there's not very many people there. And I don't think these people understand.
Our first action, we got 400 signatures, and we had at least 200 drivers shut off at the airport. And when the cops asked us, because we hit the time limit of when we said we were going to be doing our action, and the cops are pretty cool. They let us go for about 45 minutes past our time frame. And when we finally shut it down, like I said, we had somewhere between 400 and 500 signatures on a petition, and we had talked to 1,000 drivers that had gone in and out of that lot that night. And since then, when we have the bigger actions, the drivers show up. This Thursday, we should have quite a few drivers showing up. People are really mad. The destination filter was kind of the last straw.
All this pay cut that LA is getting, we got before Christmas last year. We got this exact same pay cut, but we got it before Christmas. So
right.
LA,
right.
I continuously have friends that are on YouTube coming to us going, "Oh, we just got a pay cut. Doggone it." I'm like, we got one just in time for Christmas too. I mean, we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and both companies are playing games, and they think that for the drivers that this is their livelihood, this is how we pay our bills. It's gotten downright vicious out there. And this, I've had to completely change my driving patterns. I have to work a lot smarter. And I work harder. I've put more miles this past year on my car than I did for the 2 years before that. Because I'm working different areas, and I'm doing longer rides, and I'm intentionally doing the long ride zones. But at least I'm clearing between 20 and 30 bucks an hour. But most drivers out there, they're not. If they're lucky, they're clearing 15. And then they take their expenses off of that, and they're literally making $7 an hour. Our minimum wage here in Chicago is $15 an hour. Well, I think they're up to 13 of that 15. But it's crazy. You could literally go to McDonald's and make more money.
Soon it will be 15.
They justify their behavior because this is a part-time extra money gig, right? But it's not anymore. They encouraged us to buy fancier cars. With Lyft, the bonus used to be for any driver, right? If you drove 30 hours, you got 10% of the 20 back. If you drove 50 hours, you got 20% of the 20% back, so you got 100% of your meter. They had hourly guarantees on the slower times when they wanted more drivers out, because it was really hard to get drivers out on Sunday morning when there was really high demand because everyone worked late on Saturday night. So they started putting huge hourly guarantees on Sunday morning to get more drivers out there. So those of us that were driving Sunday morning were real pissed because suddenly we went from $50 an hour to making $20 an hour. But you know what I mean? They encouraged us to become full-time employees. 2 years later or 3 years later, they kept changing the number. They went from how many hours you worked to how many rides you did. And they kept changing and increasing the amount of rides. And then, some of them had to be in peak hours. Then your car had to be less than 5 years old. And this is the thing. Now, and this is my last point, and I know we're gone really long, but check out, I know, Mandy, you post a lot of stuff, and I don't know if you've posted this, but it's on our CRA page. It's gotten a lot of traction. Lyft is supposed to be the friendly company, right? Lyft is supposed to be the green company. They just posted a list of 100 cars that they will no longer accept on their platform, and every single one of them is a compact, hybrid, or electric car. Now, if you're on the platform now in a Prius, you can stay in your Prius. But when you go to get a new car, you cannot get a Prius anymore because the passengers don't like the small cars. But it's supposed to be an earth-friendly green company.
Yeah.
And what have they done? They've taken every earth friendly car off their platform. And
Yep.
why did they do it? Because the passengers want Lux cars.
Yep.
And the only drivers that are making any money are the Lux drivers. So they're basically trying to get all of us out there in Cadillacs and Audis and BMWs and Mercedes and paying $600, $700, $800 a month on our car note, and yet they keep cutting our pay.
Yep.
So we can't afford those kind of cars. So, you know, and then they suck these kids into thinking that this is a great way of making money. And so they give them extra rides. They give them the best rides in the beginning. They swear they don't do it, but talk to any brand new driver, and they're kept busier. Older drivers, we sit in there, can't get a ping, and the new drivers will be flying past us. And they get surge rides when we get sucked out of the surge to pick up the rides outside the surge zone. And they keep them busy, and they keep their money big, so they get sucked into the system, and they think, oh, great, this is a great way of making money. Well, then after they've been on the system for a couple of months, guess what? They're out there stuck like the rest of us, being sucked out of the surge zone. You can literally be sitting inside a 200% zone and get a ping from 2 miles away with no surge. And they do it to older drivers all the time, especially if you're not out there hustling 200 hours a week. If you're one of those drivers that's out there 14 hours a day, you'll get the surge. If you're someone like me who doesn't, you won't get that surge.
So I want to address,
the whole city.
I have a question from somebody in the room.
Okay.
He said, I think at least some of these cars, there are safety concerns. I don't know. He's wondering if they have safety concerns, why they decided. I don't understand. Prius, as far as I know, Prius doesn't have any safety concerns.
Right.
I mean, Priuses are good, solid cars.
There might be a few cars on the list that are on recall lists, and that's why they put them on the list. But the majority of the cars that are on the list are hybrid.
It says,
or electric.
He says maybe they're too small. He said, yeah.
Well, see, the thing about it is, and we talked about this because, and this comes down to passenger responsibility, right? Because the passenger sees what kind of car is coming for them, right?
Yep.
When we accept the ride, they get sent a notice saying, yo, Barb's coming to you and she drives a Honda Accord, okay, which is a fairly mid-sized car, okay? I can fit 4 adults in this car easily, and my trunk will fit 4 suitcases, okay? But if you're 4 grown men, all right, and you've got full-size suitcases, and the car that's coming for you is a Prius, then you should cancel the ride.
Yeah.
And you should be smart enough to ask for an XL car. Or just play Russian roulette until you get a car that's big enough that you're going to be able to drive, be comfortable in.
Well, you can cancel the ride. If you get the car, you can cancel it right away. But if they're already on the way there, you can't cancel it. Yeah. If they're like...
If you have 2 minutes to cancel the ride without any penalty, after 2 minutes, if the driver has gone a certain distance, then you get charged with a cancellation fee. Although the driver doesn't get that until they get to the destination and sit for 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
And we call the passenger. But the company, if someone cancels a lot of rides, they start getting hit with a $2 fee or a $5 fee. I don't know what it is, but they get stubborn about not canceling. Well, they can always call the driver because they can no longer penalize us for a low acceptance rate. They can send us nasty emails or pop up on our screen all the time saying your acceptance rate is down to 60%, but they can't penalize us for it anymore. So, because it's against the law. They lost some lawsuit, so they can't penalize us for cancellation. So if a passenger calls me and says, listen, we're four very good sized people and we all have full luggage. Will we be comfortable in your car? I would say no. My trunk won't take 4 full-size suitcases, which means one of them's got to come into the car. And there's no way I can fit 4 adults and a full-size suitcase in my car. Not in drive an hour in heavy traffic from O'Hare to downtown. Everybody be miserable. So I would tell them that they should order an XL car. They'll be comfortable. Their suitcases will fit. It'll cost them about $10 more. And if it's 4 people splitting from the airport, no big deal. Majority of our rides are 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is they promote Lyft line. And if a driver has a Prius or a Spark and the other things that are on that list, and they try and put 4 passengers in there, they don't know the size of the passengers. So the company should then take the responsibility of not adding more than 3 passengers to a Prius or a compact car. You know, if you've got a deuce and a single, that car should be full. Right?
You know what?
If in my Lyft line, I have some people that are large. Like, say, I got 2 people that are like 6'5" in my car. And then I've got one person in the front that's, you know, that's a normal 6-foot person. There's no way I'm putting a 4th person in my car. So I won't take another person on my Lyft line.
You know what I do?
mean, the driver has to have...
I have learned how to toggle with Uber, how to turn off. After I get 2 people in...
with Lyft, you can turn on a last ride. So they won't give you any more passengers. Or if they've already paired you with a 4th person, and your car is already full, you know, with the 3 people you have in there, you just cancel that 4th person and then turn on your last ride. So part of it is the driver's responsibility. Part of it is the passenger's responsibility. How many times have you pulled up to the curb and there's 5 or 6 people for a normal Lyft car or a normal Uber car because they don't want to pay the extra for an XL car? And they're like, well, we're not going very far and they can sit on my lap. No, they can't. You know, order an XL or order a second car. And drivers that take them are doing a disservice to other drivers that refuse to take them. So all these compact cars, I mean, the rules for Lyft and Uber is that you have to, any car that's on the road has to have 4 doors and has to have 5 seatbelts. 4 passenger and 1 for the driver, right? My car has 6. Technically, I could put a 3rd person in front. But I won't put 5 people in my car. You know, Lyft does not know that I can pop up my center console and put another person in. So I never take more than 4 people. But the reality is part of this is on the drivers. We've been breaking the rules because, face it, when you're out there and you finally get a ping that's 150% ride, that's going to actually make your day somewhat profitable, and you pull up and they got a kid or there are a bunch of teenagers that are obviously under 18, or there's 5 of them, you're like, well, I ain't canceling the ride because it's a surge ride, so I'm going to take it. And, you know, the passengers shouldn't do it, the drivers shouldn't do it. But to say you're a green company, they made a big deal last Earth Day, huge. Every year they put out an email on, you know, within the company to all the drivers every Earth Day saying what our carbon footprint is. Last year, we hit a 0 carbon footprint because they've been investing in divvy and wind farms and all this other stuff, right? And so last year, they made a big deal for the first time we hit a 0 impact on the earth, right? And what did they do this year because they're going public? They got rid of all the hybrid cars. The only hybrid or electric cars that are now allowed on the platform are luxury. So you can do the LX or the what's Musk's cars, the ones that cost $90,000. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
The Tesla?
Tesla. Tesla's on the list. You know, you can drive Tesla, you know, but you can't drive a Prius. Well, if I had $90,000 to buy a car, I certainly wouldn't be driving it for Lyft and putting 60,000 miles a year on my damn car. So the reality is they're trying to get us all into luxury vehicles by cutting the rates down so badly for the everyday driver that the only way to make money is to be on the high-end cars. And they are getting rid of all compact cars. And, you know, they're pushing us into, you know, right now it's 5 years, you know, in order to be eligible for any bonuses or hourly guarantees or anything else, your car has to be less than 5 years old. Well, they can't have it both ways. They can't say this is a part-time extra money gig and 97% of their drivers just do this for extra money and fun, and encourage us all to buy luxury, high-end black car service cars that cost us $800 a month, where the only way we could pay for that vehicle is to drive 60 to 100 hours a week. So they can't have it both ways. Either we are full-time drivers, which we are, or we're not. But they can't have it both ways. They can't sit there and say they're the earth-friendly company and get rid of all hybrids, because then they're not earth-friendly. So each company has its faults, and I've been a big supporter of Lyft. They've done things for drivers. They used to listen to us a lot. Now they have become completely tone deaf because it's all about the big bucks. You know, I don't know what their stock price is opened at today, but they all just became multi-billionaires. And they're full-time employees inside the house. You know, they all were given stock. They were all given a percentage of stock based on how many years they worked for the company, which is generally how stock is handed out when someone goes public. But all the drivers that helped them make their company, they didn't reward us. They rewarded, I think it was a total of 10,000 drivers across the country.
Well, we're going to have to...
10,000 out of a million.
Yeah. We're going to have to wrap this up now. I did want to answer a question. Somebody just came in the room and they're like, I thought we weren't supposed to be talking about this action. And we are not being specific about the action. We said this before. He just came in the room. We are not being exactly specific. We're letting people know that there will be an action on Thursday, April 5th. And it will be at 6:30 p.m. at O'Hare, but we are not getting in super detail. And just so y'all know, I am going to try to be there to live stream it. And of course, Barb is going to be there. And I do want to make sure you check out the description of below, because I did put the petition in the description below. A lot of people on my channel said, oh, they would like to sign it. And please do so. And they were concerned about, oh, they don't want to get junk mail. That you're not going to get junk mail. You're not.
With the petition, the only thing you will get is an update. About every couple months, I send out an update via the petition. The data that's on the petition is blocked to us. It's a Care 2 petition. So if you are on the petition every couple months, you will get an email that you don't have to open. But I don't update the petition often. It will be updated this week because we will be uploading our legislative agenda. So if you sign the petition, you want to look at a copy of our legislative agenda, you'll get it. Or you'll get the link for it. You can check it out or not. If you want additional information, you can send a message through the petition site or through Mandy or through our Facebook page, and we will get information to you.
Oh, yeah.
We try and respect everybody's privacy. There's not that many signatures online because most drivers have been signing up at actions.
Yeah. We've collected a lot at our actions.
Right. We have about 8,000 signatures. We're trying to hit 10,000 before we meet with whoever our new mayor is. So please sign, and I promise you I won't spam you. Trust me, I don't even go near my spam folder. So, like I said, maybe every 2 months. I honestly haven't updated the petition since before Christmas. So it's been 3 months since I've sent out an update. We sent out a happy holiday, and this is what we did this, and what we've got going on. And since I'm the only one that can do it, I can honestly tell you guys, I'm not a spam person, and I try and respect everybody's privacy, but we need signatures. So please post it, share it, post it, share it. We need about 2,000 more signatures before we meet with City Hall. And one of the reasons we're doing as many actions as we can over the next month is we need the pressure from the press to continue. We've been getting a lot of good press, and we will be meeting hopefully with the state and the new mayor, and hopefully that will get us a sit down with the transportation board, and Chicago will be the next city with regulations. Sometimes it moves fast, sometimes it moves slow. It's a long process. Don't give up hope. Keep working. If you can't attend the action, but you want to be involved, go on our Facebook page, look at the various information, like it, share it, get it out to other people and that helps us too.
Yeah.
The more drivers we can reach, the more people we can reach with the information. Most of our passengers don't know we're going through this. So, they're happy because the fares are staying cheap and actually going down. So, they're okay with it. And they don't know what they're putting the drivers through. So the more it's out there, the more it hits people that are actually our passengers, the more it helps us all the way around. So if you can't come to various actions, but you want to be involved, just spend a couple minutes on Facebook, look at the various articles or videos, sign the petition, and post and share.
Yeah.
That's all we ask. Like, post, and share, and that helps us too, because we know that all drivers can't make it,
Yeah.
but we're out here fighting hard for drivers.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
okay,
thank
any
you,
other
Barb.
questions?
No, I got to get going.
Me too.
The spouse is saying, hey, come on. So, all right.
No, you have a wonderful night. Feel better, and I will see you next Thursday.
Yeah. Thank you, Barb.
All right.
All right. Bye.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Bye. Thank you to everybody that joined this program. If you are on the replay, we really appreciate you checking out the replay. Please put in the description below. Team Replay, thank you. Kudos to you, and have an awesome night. Oh, and I am, you said, how am I feeling? I'm just chucking along. I can't do much. So, all right. This talking thing is all I can do. Thank you, guys.